Let's start off first of all with local politics. There's been a lot of hand-wringing over the possibility that Mamdani does win the election here in New York. And, Wall Street, real estate folks, a lot of people who are used to the status quo are concerned about some of the policies that he's proposing with regards to rent freezes and other things that could affect their business. I am curious, just in your read and having been in this city for so long, does that actually matter as much? Because it's one thing to go out on the campaign trail and make these promises. But as we've seen with other progressive mayors like Bill de Blasio, like David Dinkins, and a few others in the past, once you get in there, things change a lot.
Most observers agree that it's going to be nearly impossible for a lot of Zoran's campaign promises to come to fruition because they require buy-in from legislators in Albany. I think that the relationship that Zoran has with business leaders and the police in particular will be crucially important if he does become mayor next year. And he is the front runner. The key variable in this race is whether Curtis Sliwa remains in the race into November, because right now Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo are dividing the anti-Zoran vote.
I am curious just about what you make of Mamdani's rise, and primarily in the context of your ascent, too. There was sort of this hunger, particularly back in 2020 and even prior to that, for candidates who weren't from the traditional establishment, whether it was Democrat, Republican, whatever. And he seems to kind of be in that vein, for better or for worse. And I am curious as to what you think is driving that.
I think a lot of it is use of social media in a really native and adept way. I mean, you could see Zoran's message really resounded throughout the electorate among young people in particular, grew the voting base by tens of thousands in the primary. One thing, though, I think people should understand is that you had maybe 11% of New Yorkers vote in that Democratic primary. You need to have been a registered Democrat months in advance. Zoran's win in that primary may or may not reflect actually like the majority of New Yorkers. And it's one reason why I've been for open primaries here in New York and around the country, because I think that would be a truer test of someone's popular appeal.
Well, you make a good point that the primary doesn't neatly map over to the actual election. And you mentioned that Zoran Mamdani's campaign in particular has used social media very well. It seems like they have a lot of organic grassroots buzz. I want to compare and contrast what you make of the Mamdani campaign compared to what former Governor Andrew Cuomo has done, what Eric Adams had done in his campaign before he dropped out.
No, I talked about your native use of it. I think a lot of it is generational. Zoran's in his early mid-30s. I think Andrew Cuomo might be in his mid-60s or so. And so it's the difference between taking out your smartphone and using an app, which is what Zoran is doing a lot of the time. With Andrew Cuomo, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a staffer. And that might not seem like a lot, but it's kind of a lot. And everyone can feel it, everyone can tell.
You never know. It could be, Andrew Cuomo firing off those tweets. Who knows, though? I do want to broaden out and talk a little bit about America's broader national political scene. You, of course, are no fan of the two-party system. You founded your own third party as well. And over the summer, Politico had reported that, you had been in touch with Elon Musk. He has similar ambitions as well. Have those conversations progressed at all since the summer?
What has progressed is America's disenchantment with the two major parties, and you see it now with the context of the shutdown. But our system's not working. The question is what's going to get it to work. It's either going to be some kind of miraculous restoration of one party or the other, or it's going to be a group of independent Americans who raise their hands and say, look, we get it, we need something new. I'm on the record as wanting to talk to just about anyone who wants to make that new political alternative happen. And we did have some interesting conversations over the summer.
How'd they end up?
Well, let's just say the desire among Americans is growing all the time, and I see that on many different dimensions.
Do you think it's viable, though, in this environment, that we could have not just a third party, but a third party that could actually be a formidable challenger to the two-party Democrat-Republican system?
100%. And I'm on Bloomberg's air right now. I mean, we all know Mike Bloomberg should be the patron saint of this as someone who ran for office as a Democrat, Independent, and Republican quite successfully. But I'm a math guy. There are 500,000 local races around the country, and tens of thousands of those offices are technically nonpartisan. Forward already has dozens of mayors and city council members and local elected officials who say, look, I'm tired of apologizing for Team Blue or Team Red. I'm Team America, or I'm Team my constituents. You could easily see that get to hundreds, even thousands of locally elected officials right now, like not even some kind of crazy new infusion of resources. And to create a different dynamic in Washington, D.C., you would probably only need 3 or 4 U.S. senators and maybe 6 or 8 members of Congress, either or, in order to completely change the politics of this country.
Are you actively, though, working towards this right now, or is this just kind of something that you would like to see?
I mean, we didn't get to 59 elected officials and rising by accident. And, you know, we're going to have exciting announcements. I will say one of the top 40 mayors in the U.S. is going to announce they're joining forward in the coming days. So, of course, we're working on it.
And we should point out, of course, that Michael Bloomberg is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP and this network. But when it comes to moving away from the 2-party system to potentially a 3-party system, maybe even more, for a lot of people, that's viewed as sort of a pipe dream. And when it comes to making it an actuality, do you think it could start at the national level in a presidential election, or do you think that it has to start more local and then build up from there?
I think either could work. And you can imagine an independent primary with Mark Cuban and Mike Bloomberg and some other folks running, and the majority of Americans would say, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
And you could have people vote in that primary on their smartphones in real time, as opposed to this strange, anachronistic, archaic, non-representative primary system that takes us to, no offense to anyone, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, et cetera. I mean, it would be modern. Folks watching this right now are like, oh, I run my life that way. I run my investment portfolio that way. Why am I allowing these parties to run our politics like it's still, you know, the 19th or 20th century?
Are you thinking about yourself running for office again? Any office?
Well, Romaine, I get urged to do so every day by New Yorkers such as yourself. I want good things for the people of New York. I want good things for the people of America. And the question is, how are we going to get there?
Right.
And my argument is that it's not going to happen in this current setup. So we should just, you know, roll up our sleeves and try and build something that will get it done.
Is our political system, though, healthy enough? And I say that, and this is going to be a bit of a loaded question, but there's a lot of concerns about the direction that the current federal administration, Trump administration, has taken us, whether we get to a midterm next year or a presidential election in 2028, that is even going to be fair enough to even allow for the potential of a third-party candidate.
I agree with your questioning our institution's ability to function. It's one reason why, for example, I was championing Dean Phillips challenging Joe Biden back in January 24, being like, look, the Democratic Party should have an actual democratic process, which they did not, which ended up with, in my mind, you know, like the wrong candidate and a result that I wasn't very happy with.
You were disappointed that they just basically selected Kamala Harris without an actual process.
My joke was that they should change their name from the Democratic Party to the Selector Party, because that's apparently their process. And a guy named Dean Phillips gave his political career trying to make that case. He was a sitting member of Congress in good standing, and they pilloried him for making the point that, look, running an 81-year-old unpopular incumbent's not the right course of action. Instead of listening to Dean, what did they do? They cast him out of politics altogether. And I was there with Dean in New Hampshire making that case. So I agree with you that the institutions have not lived up to their promise this past period of time. The question is, can we rejuvenate them to the point that they can?
Well, I think a lot of people share your frustration with how the Democratic primary went down in 2024. But you mentioned the current government shutdown. Of course, we're on day 2. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, because it's interesting to see this situation where it feels like the shutdown is being used as a negotiation tactic on both sides when it comes to specific policies that want to be pushed through. And I wonder what you make of this in the political long term, what this could mean for both parties, because it seems like a delicate line that is being towed right now.
I see this shutdown as, unfortunately, an emblem of the institutional disintegration that we've been witnessing this past several years. It's bad for the economy, it's bad for the American people. And the reason it's happening is that Chuck Schumer took a ton of heat when he extended government funding in March, because what the base of each party wants is a fighter who's going to stick it to the other side, regardless of what that means for government employees or the economy. So you have these perverse political incentives that are dragging both parties in directions that may not serve the American people. I think that's why this shutdown could drag on because we're talking about politics instead of results or any degree of deal-making common sense.
So Andrew, you're wearing a pin on your lapel. It says Noble. You recently founded Noble Mobile, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit, what you're trying to accomplish there. I know that you were partly inspired by Mark Cuban and what he's doing in the PBM space.
Yes, check it out. Americans are sad for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're not saving enough money, and number two, we're staring at our phones too much, what my friend Hassan Minhaj calls our rectangles of sadness. So Noble Mobile will cut your wireless bills. By the way, why do Americans pay twice as much as Europeans or Australians?
Why?
Because Verizon and AT&T are now paying $18 billion in shareholder dividends and not investing in network capacity anymore. I was a Verizon customer for 25 years, paying them $140 a month. And then I looked up and said, wait, why am I doing that? So Noble Mobile gets you closer to what you should be paying and will pay you more if you use your phone less. So it's the ad is me smacking phones out of people's hands.
Smacking phones out of people's hands.
But it's the first carrier that will pay you to use your phone less.
You're also throwing these no phone parties. Maybe I'm getting the name correctly. I mean, how does that dovetail with all this?
We had 800 people come out to a phone-free party in New York. The New Yorker, apparently they're writing an article about it for next week. Thousands of people around the country. And check it out. I'm old enough to remember going to a college party and not having a phone because they didn't exist yet. So what we'd do is we'd look at each other and maybe we'd say hello to someone. You know, maybe you'd maybe you'd even get someone's info. So these offline parties have struck a chord, and we're going all around the country with them. Offlineparty.com. I'm a party promoter in more ways than one.